Hello everyone. I'm making this plea video to the government to reform the bus and rail services across the UK because there are issues that I would like to highlight with the current system of rail services, in particular the constant rail strikes and with the current deregulated market of bus services, as I'm starting to get sick and tired of rural bus services suffering, especially when the timetable is inadequate or they don't run every day, i.e. Monday to Saturday, but they don't run on Sundays and bank holidays, as well as the driver shortage crisis. This video will be more about the bus service issues than the rail services because the only rail issue that I'm unhappy with is the constant rail strikes that the rail union members keep voting to do, particularly the RMT union, all because they're not happy with the pay and working conditions. With the rail issues, and I'm also making this video to private rail companies that the government franchise the trains to, I'm making this video because I'm not happy that you're causing the rail union members to constantly strike because you're not offering them a decent wage that's above inflation during this cost of living crisis, and I don't think that my previous plea video to the rail unions to stop constantly striking is working. So I'm begging you to offer the rail trade unions a decent wage that they're asking for, or even a bit above it, because I can't put up with my Saturday plans being in ruins when I do leisure trips that are quite far, or if I'm staying in Skegness longer than the last bus back to Boston. Even if you have to raise the rail fares to accommodate this, and I'm hoping that the rail companies only use most of the increased amounts it's gone up by to accommodate for higher staff wages, I'll be happy to pay more on my rail fare to do this. I'm not sure about how the working conditions can be improved, but when I met the picket line in Boston a few months ago, one rail worker mentioned that the government and rail companies wanted to run driver-only trains, which I think is a terrible idea because that will only attract fare dodgers if there's no ticket inspector on board, as well as if a passenger is needing help on where to go, or if a passenger needs to buy a ticket on the train. I've also heard that overcrowding on trains is also an issue if there's not enough carriages and lots of people are commuting, especially to cities or seaside resorts in the summer, and this also needs to be sorted out. I have also heard that you are cutting the safety regime, and again, that is a terrible idea because that could make things more prone to accidents. Now, I'm going to tell you why you need to re-regulate the bus services again, or at least partially. First of all, tackling the driver shortage crisis. A lot of the bus companies are struggling to pay their bus drivers a decent wage because of the increased running costs, and because of that, the bus drivers that are in the job are having to work longer hours because of this issue and are turning to the HGV industry because of the better pay and working conditions. And that's the main reason why there's a driver shortage in the first place, because all that you're doing is subsidising a very small percentage of the fuel costs, and that just isn't good enough because bus companies can't pay their bus drivers a decent wage because the majority of their bus services, particularly rural services, rely on it being run commercially, often with very little or no funding from local councils. And yes, it's fine if a service is interurban because they're profitable in cities and large towns like Lincoln and at many seaside resorts like Skegness. But when it comes to rural services, most of them struggle because they claim that only a small amount of passengers using the service. And I, for one, am getting sick and tired of bus service cancellations due to a driver shortage, or in the cases of some bus companies, particularly smaller bus companies such as Rye Lane, having to cancel their weekend services to focus on the main commuter peak period, which is Monday to Friday, to minimise any cancellations. Secondly, you should consider paying for the bus services rather than the bus companies run them commercially, particularly rural services, because I am starting to get sick and tired of bus services cutting their timetables, having inadequate bus timetables, nor running every day on some routes, i.e. they run Monday to Saturday, but it doesn't run on Sundays and bank holidays. And that's the main issue that I'm raising here, when a bus route doesn't run every day. If many rail services run every day, then why can't bus services? And secondly, if rail services follow the normal Monday to Friday timetable on bank holiday Mondays, then why is it that bus services follow the Sunday timetable or not run at all if the route doesn't have one? As for Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year's Day, I can excuse them for the bus services not running, but apart from that, I hate it when a bus service doesn't run every day. I don't mind Sundays and bank holidays running on a less frequent timetable to reflect less people being out, as long as they're adequate enough. It's just when they don't run at all that really bothers me, especially when people may rely on them as they may still need them to commute to work on Sundays or to attend hospital appointments, or like in my case, to go out on leisure trips. I'm literally getting fed up of hearing the words "not commercially viable" from bus companies, and I'm sorry to have to sound ruthless, but this is my angry response towards them, because I'm sick and tired of hearing this rubbish excuse.
Don't even say it! I hereby proclaim no more using the words "not commercially viable" ever again!
Now, most of the bus routes at issue here are going to be mostly about the ones in Lincolnshire, as I live in Boston. Now, often I travel to Skegness by bus, although I would occasionally get the train to Skegness if I've got the money to. And although the 57 between Spalding, Boston and Skegness runs hourly Monday to Saturday, it doesn't have a Sunday and bank holiday service, and I wish that there was one, regardless of passenger demand, because I hate being stuck in Boston all the time on Sundays. I also find this unfair too, because the 56 between Lincoln, Horncastle and Skegness has a Sunday and bank holiday service, as it has 5 buses in each direction, but hourly Monday to Saturday like the 57. I'm partially regretting moving to Boston in 2014 because of this issue of no Sunday and bank holiday buses in Boston, and this is making me want to move back to Skegness, or somewhere along the 56 like Horncastle, where I can get a bus to somewhere on a Sunday. And I would rather get the bus rather than the train, because I have a bus pass which allows me to travel on almost any bus service within England for free, and with trains I have to keep putting money aside for it if I can afford to, and trains can be expensive depending on how far I travel. Now, I'm lucky to have a railway station in Boston, and I'm thankful that East Midlands Railway now has Sunday morning trains all year round, as I sometimes don't just go to Skegness. I sometimes also get the bus to Lincoln from Skegness, or in the summer season, Mablethorpe too, but I'm thinking about those poor towns that don't have a railway station nor a Sunday and bank holiday bus service to get people anywhere, making people who rely on the buses feel cut off, such as over in Louth, because the 51 to Grimsby, as well as the 50 to Lincoln and Mablethorpe, only runs Monday to Saturday, and over in Alford, the 7 to Skegness, which only runs Monday to Saturday, and the 96A to Spilsby and Mablethorpe, which only runs Monday to Friday during the winter season, and Monday to Saturday during the summer season. I also wish that the 59 between Skegness and Mablethorpe had a Sunday and bank holiday bus service as well all year round, and not just in the summer season. As for bus service reductions that bus companies have done over the years, for a start, I would like the 53 between Lincoln, Market Rasen and Grimsby to do the full route every hour throughout the day, and not just every 2 hours, as it only does half of the route every hour most of the day, and I just wished that it didn't, because I would like it to be able to get to Grimsby and Cleethorpes more easily, but never mind that. I just wished that the route extended to Cleethorpes like it used to a long time ago, when it used to do the full route every hour Monday to Saturday. And I believe at one point it did have a Sunday and bank holiday service too, as it had 3 buses in each direction on those days. Back again about explaining the 57 between Spalding, Boston and Skegness. What Stagecoach have recently done, I think that it was back in January this year at the time of making this video, I'm not happy that the last bus back to Boston is at 5:30 p.m, because I feel that it is far too early for the last bus, and I would rather have it back to 10 to 7 in the evening like how it was before, because that was an acceptable time for me if I stayed for as long as I can in Skegness, or when I travel far if I didn't want to get the train back to Boston. As for the route between Mablethorpe and Louth, before 2020, the frequency used to be hourly, as it was on the 59 and latterly the 51 when Grimsby Stagecoach Depot took it over. But since 2020, at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the route's been transferred to the 50 between Lincoln and Louth, and the timetable isn't adequate enough for me to get to Louth whenever I go to Grimsby and Cleethorpes for the day, whenever I go on holiday at Golden Sands, which I do every year. Now, fortunately, I was able to rectify the problem by using Call Connect, as they supplemented that part of the 50 between Louth and Mablethorpe, but it would be easier if I did have proper buses to save me the hassle of having to book a Call Connect bus. Again, another issue that I'm raising about the bus services being reduced. Back when Bry Lane's route between Boston and Spalding via Donington was numbered K59, before it's renumbered B9 back in August this year, back in 2017, they substantially reduced that route. It did attract a lot of complaints from passengers who use it, including myself, when I do use it to visit my nan and granddad who live in Swineshead. Since that change, although I was able to get to the bus there, the change meant that I was unable to get the last bus back to Boston at around 6:20 from the evening from Swineshead. But like with the route between Mablethorpe and Louth, I was able to use the Core Connect bus to get myself back to Boston, even though it's a bit of a pain booking it. Also, as for the 96 between Spilsby, Alford and Mablethorpe, which is ran by Hunt's Coaches, although there wasn't really any service reduction, I'm not happy that they stopped their all-year-round Saturday service on it and ran it all day in the summer season only, and during the winter season only ran it Monday to Friday since January 2022, because quite often during the winter season I go arcading at the Mirage, and I would go via Spilsby on the bus journey there, but I usually go via Skegness on the way back home, and this is normally my Saturday routine. I did initially rectify the issue of booking two Core Connect buses, one from Spilsby to Alford and Alford to Mablethorpe, but this year I'm finding it more easier to go via Skegness both ways. If Hunt's Coaches did have their Saturday service subsidised on the 96, the seasonal Saturday service wouldn't have happened, and it would have been viable to keep it running all year round. Another issue that I'm raising here is the B5, formerly the IC5 between Lincoln, Coningsby and Boston. Now, although Bry Lane have still got it as a through service, and they're only running it Monday to Friday at the moment due to their critical shortage of bus drivers, when Lincolnshire County Council stepped in to keep their Saturday services running, I was glad when Stagecoach took that contract because they kept it as a through service, even though it still ran every 2 hours like Bry Lane's previous reduced timetable before January. Although I think that the 6 p.m. bus from Lincoln should have gone all the way to Boston and not just end at Coningsby, because I found that their last bus back to Boston at 3:30 p.m. is too early for myself. However, when Stagecoach's contract to run the Saturday service on the IC5 ended in September, they decided not to run their commercial through service anymore, and I know that I may sound horrible in saying this, but I felt that it was wrong of Lincolnshire County Council to split the B5 in half, because there's only two buses between Boston and Woodall Spa, which they contracted that half to PC Coaches of Lincoln to run, and I find the timetable to be totally inadequate. Yet, the other half of the route they tendered had 4 buses between Lincoln and Coningsby, which they contracted to Black Cat Travel. Now, when I complained to the council about splitting the route into 2, they said that they did it because the majority of passenger movements were between Lincoln and Coningsby, and there wasn't much passenger demand between Boston and Woodall Spa, along with taking their limited funding, resources and driver availability into consideration. Now, I can understand their limited funding and resources, but I don't care about what the majority of passenger movements are. I find that splitting the route into 2 inexcusable, because that's caused me chaos, as I'm having to go via Skegness to get to Lincoln on the 57 and then the 56. But never mind that, I just wished that there was a Sunday and bank holiday service on the B5 like with the 57. Speaking of Sunday and bank holiday services, I feel that I need to raise this issue about the 37 between Spalding and Peterborough, because this has attracted a lot of complaints from the passengers in Crowland. The bus users in Crowland are not happy that Stagecoach have reduced their Monday to Saturday service from hourly to every 2 hours and withdrew their Sunday and bank holiday service on it when it previously had 4 buses in each direction on those days. Now, I do travel to Peterborough from Spalding sometimes, but it's always been by train for me because it's much more direct and I choose it over the bus, unlike my travelling between Boston and Skegness. But I feel that the Spalding residents do need the 37 to Peterborough on Sundays, because at present there's no Sunday trains to Peterborough, and now this means that the only bus that they've now got is the 505 to King's Lynn, which currently runs every 30 minutes Monday to Saturday and every hour on Sundays and bank holidays. Now, going outside of Lincolnshire, because I feel that these bus routes are at issue, the first one I'm going to explain is the 46 that was between King's Lynn and March, before being split into 2 with the route between King's Lynn and Wisbech being taken over by Links Bus, and the route between Wisbech and March being taken over by Stagecoach in Peterborough after Stagecoach closed down their Norfolk operations a few years after rebranding Norfolk Green in 2015, after buying them out in 2013. The route ran every day until July 2016, but when Stagecoach withdrew their Sunday service on it because of low demand, according to one Norfolk resident who I had spoken to, the reason behind the low demand was because most of the people who lived along that route between the Norfolk and Cambridgeshire border was not aware that there was a Sunday and bank holiday service on the 46, and when they did become aware of it after Stagecoach's decision to stop its Sunday buses due to low demand, they started using it. But Stagecoach decided to scrap its Sunday buses on the route anyway, and it's not had its Sunday journeys reinstated since then, even though there was demand for its Sunday buses. The next bus route at issue is over in North Yorkshire, and that is the 128 between Scarborough, Pickering and Helmsley Square. Now, I have used this service before whenever I go on holiday in Yorkshire, as I used the service to go to the North Yorkshire Moors Railway to board their trains at Pickering Station. And although EYMS did run the service hourly, what they've decided to do since the 4th of September this year, as I heard from one Scarborough resident whilst I was waiting for the bus to Pickering on that day during my holiday at Primrose Valley back in August this year, is that EYMS are reducing their Monday to Saturday service to a 2-hourly service because they claimed that running it hourly was not commercially viable anymore due to low passenger numbers, and this was confirmed by EYMS when I approached them for comment about this. I do feel that this has had an impact on the passengers who use this service because they'll now have to wait every 2 hours for a bus, and I think that this attracted a few complaints from passengers too. I'm not happy with this change either because I fear that the timetable may be inadequate for me to get the bus to Pickering if I plan on going to the North Yorkshire Moors Railway during my holiday at any of the holiday parks along the Yorkshire coast, like Primrose Valley, in the future. Now, I am thankful that the 128 between Scarborough, Pickering and Helmsley Square still has its Sunday and bank holiday buses, again running every 2 hours during the summer season and doing its full route, although it still has 4 buses in each direction during the winter season on Sundays, and I do wish that it did the full route and not just between Scarborough and Pickering. Back to Lincolnshire again, I have known a few bus routes to be completely withdrawn. Notably for me is Bry Lane's IT3 and IT4 town service routes in Boston and their F39 town service route in Skegness, and I think that it was in December 2017 when they announced that they could no longer sustain them. And also Stagecoach's 56A between Skegness and Bury le Marsh, which is a variant of the 56 between Lincoln, Horncastle and Skegness. And I do think that the 56A should have been kept, as the route did run daily, especially when passengers used that route because of a service stopping inside Southview Leisure Centre, unlike the 56, and because the route went into parts of Bury le Marsh that the 56 didn't, that would have made it easier for the residents there to get to Skegness than what the 56 would. Although the route to Southview Leisure Centre has been transferred to Stagecoach's Skegness Beacon Park circular on the Route 2, the issue that I'm raising here is that the Route 2 should run daily and not just Monday to Saturday because of the route stopping inside Southview Leisure Centre, regularly used by holidaymakers that are staying at Southview, and because the 56A was hourly every day, including Sunday, before Stagecoach's commercial decision to remove the 56A completely because of so-called low demand. It means that anyone going to and from Southview on Sunday would have to get the 56 bus to outside the park, and it's very limited because of only 5 buses on Sundays, and there's a large gap between the 11 a.m. bus and the 4 p.m. departures from Lincoln and Skegness. I think it was in 2020 when Stagecoach decided to take their decision to withdraw the 56A between Skegness and Bury le Marsh at some point during the COVID-19 pandemic. Or it could have been 2021, but I don't know when they withdrew the 56A. But it was around that time frame when they withdrew the 56A. Overall, people require a full bus service 7 days a week and not just Monday to Saturday. That may have worked decades ago, but now it doesn't, especially when most retail businesses in towns are usually open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays and bank holidays nowadays. And I think that's just about all the current issues that I've raised here about the bus services, and what I think that you, the UK government, should do is re-regulate the rural bus services across England to make the bus routes more frequent, have adequate bus timetables and run them daily, fully subsidise the bus services, much like with the rail services, and franchise the routes to private bus companies, again, like with the rail services, similar to what's already happened with the bus services in Manchester. That's how I would reform the bus services across England, although I do have to give you credit for introducing a new temporary scheme called Help for Households, where participating bus companies such as Bry Lane have a £2 single fare cap on all single bus fares, although I don't have to worry about that as I have a bus pass. And for any of you viewers watching this video, I have put a link to my petition down in the description below if you would like to sign it, because I will need to have at least 10,000 signatures to get a response from the government, and at least 100,000 signatures for it to be considered for debate in Parliament. And I might sound like the Prime Minister for saying this, but please use the buses more often, because together, and only together, can we get more frequent buses, and it will help the government and the struggling bus companies run better bus services, and we can also help tackle climate change, because by using the buses more often, you are helping to lower emissions from petrol and diesel vehicles that are a major factor to climate change. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope to see you again soon.